So I recommend planning your content like 90 days in advance. So 90 days from today, you're going to sell this thing. So what are the things that your audience needs to know or be able to do in order to make a decision to buy that product? So start talking about it, start sharing about it. Don't pitch anything. Don't, at this point early on, it's not coming soon. It's nothing like
Mhm.
that. You're just sharing, nurturing, growing your email list. Hopefully you have podcasts or things and you have a list that you're continually growing. And then a couple weeks ahead of time, then that's when just really start talking about the product itself and what wins people can get from it. And that's all
Mhm.
prior to the actual launch itself. But when you have a product, especially if it's evergreen, it's something, it's constant list building, constant, engagement, constant nurturing of your audience.
Hey everyone, welcome to Your First Digital Product, a show that helps maxed out service providers create their first digital product so they can gain an additional income stream, grow their impact without increasing one-on-one work, and experience more time freedom. On the show, I talk to business owners who have launched digital products and dig deep into how you can create, launch, and market your first digital product. I'm your host, Renee Morozowicz. Let's go. Hey everybody, today I'm here with Abby Herman, and Abby is a fractional marketing director, content strategist, and podcast manager for business owners who want to gain visibility for their businesses with personalized content strategies and implementation. She is also the host of the Content Experiment podcast. Hey Abby, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm so excited you're here. So just to kind of let the audience know, this will be a different kind of episode. Typically, when I have someone else on the podcast, they're talking about their digital products. And while you have digital products, that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about marketing those products. So I'm really excited and think that the audience will get a lot out of this. But before I dive in there and start asking you a ton of questions, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like you said, I'm Abby Herman. My business is the Content Experiment, and as you'll find out during the interview, the reason for the business being named that, which is kind of unusual, is that I think that like this whole content and marketing piece is kind of like a big experiment. Like
Yeah.
we can't just say this is the plan, this is what we're going to do, and we're
Mhm.
going to go down this path because everything changes all of the time, and so it's really important to change along with the world, our lives, the industry, our products, the people we serve, all of that. So I'm based in Phoenix and and I've been doing this for a long time.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you've probably seen a lot of those changes
Oh, yeah.
come through. Yeah. And I
Yes.
love that because I totally agree. I don't think that there's any one, like, you need to be on this social platform and you need to post this many times a
Hmm.
month and you need to engage on 14 different accounts. Like, I don't think that there's any one list of things.
Yeah.
And I don't think we want to do that. And even if there was, I don't think everybody wants to do it the same way anyway. So I think
Right.
that is awesome. So I love that. Yeah. Experiment. Very cool.
Yes.
So I'm not sure where we want to start because this is a different sort of episode. So I don't know
Hmm.
if, do you just kind of want to tell us a little bit about marketing digital products and then I can kind of like ask all of my burning questions?
Sure. So I think, and this kind of relates to what you were just saying, the most important thing to remember for anyone marketing services or products or a combination of the two is that you do not have to be everywhere. You do not have to do all of the things. In fact, I highly recommend that you don't
Okay.
because you'll burn yourself out.
Hmm.
I like to talk about it's called minimum viable content marketing, which
Okay.
like what's the bare minimum that I quote unquote should or need to do in my business in order to sell products or, digital products. And so if you want, I can kind of run through what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Hmm.
So and this is, coming from someone who has, I mean, I've been in business 10 years full time. I've been doing this since 2007. And so I've kind of seen lots of different iterations of, what marketing is. And I honestly think that the bare bones, the things that we were doing even 10 years ago can still work today as long as you kind of tweak and change it for new technology and things like that. So
Hmm.
I believe that every business owner should have, and yes, I'm going to say the word should. I'm going to should everybody
Nice.
But I really do believe that this is like key to getting yourself out there because if you're selling something, you need to have an audience. You
Yes.
need to get in front of people.
You have to have people to sell
So,
to. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I think everybody needs to have some sort of, I call it like pillar content, the place where they own their own content. And that's a podcast, a YouTube channel, or a blog. And I think we all know how popular podcasts and YouTube channels are right now. I think blogs, I don't think that they are not working. I just don't think that they work for everyone. And there are ways that you can kind of combine your podcast and your blog together.
Mhm.
So, but you want to be able to own your content. You can't rely on social media alone or at all.
Mhm. Yes.
Can I say
Yes.
at all? To sell digital products. You just can't because we don't own it. In fact, I was talking to a team member just this morning about a client's content that she's like, I put it in there, I formatted it, it wasn't showing up on Facebook or Instagram
Mhm.
correctly. And she's like, and we're like, something must have changed. Like they must have changed some sort of formatting. You never know when things are going to change. So
Right.
have some content that you own that belongs to you that you can use to kind of share your message. That's like number one, super important. And then from there, you want to be able to grow your email list. So have some sort of free offer that you can give to people when they find your website, when they find your podcast or your YouTube channel, when they find your social media post, when you're a guest on somebody else's podcast or YouTube channel or whatever, have something that you can give away for free so that you can grow your email list because we need to have an audience that we can get to
Mhm.
directly. And email is one of the best ways to do that. So you need to have some sort of email software and an opt-in for that. And then have some sort of welcome sequence when they get
Mhm.
that initial offer. So I know a lot of digital products, people have like funnels and things like that that they put people through to get them to the digital product. That's perfect. Like have something where you can introduce yourself, where you can share some content, you can share some wins that they might be able to experience right away, that your new readers might be able to experience right away. Have something like that and then continue to nurture them. So continue to send emails, not just when you're selling, not
Mhm.
just when you're launching something, not when you're just like promoting something. Have regular emails that go out that share your own insights, your own wins, your own story, and things that they can do that your subscribers can do to also get their wins. So that was a lot. So just to recap, the things that I think are most important in minimum viable content marketing are your pillar content, so your blog, your YouTube channel, or your podcast, some sort of opt-in, some sort of free offer, and which means you also need to have a welcome sequence from that and a some nurturing emails that you're sending. I would say minimum every other week, weekly if you can. So that's only 4 things, and notice like social media was not part of that.
Yes, exactly. I'm taking
I
copious notes here so I can ask
yeah,
all of my questions.
I think social media is I think it's nice to be
Mhm.
active on social media. It's nice to interact with other people's content. It's nice to, find customers there, but especially if you're selling a digital product, depending on the price point, that's a lot of interaction. Because if you're selling a kind of a low priced or a low price bundle of some sort of digital products, you want to grow a big list. You want to have a lot of people looking at your stuff. And it's really hard to interact with that many people. Like, I primarily provide a service to clients, so a high ticket service, so or medium to high ticket. And so, like, it's easier for me to engage. When you're trying to interact with a lot of people, it's really hard. That's where email comes in. And you can also take your content that you're publishing on your podcast or your YouTube channel and repurpose it for social media
Mhm.
posts, both in video, audio form, or in like, graphics or even some narrative posts, things like that, where you're like long form text. So you can do that. And ChatGPT is really helpful in helping to create those. I wouldn't rely solely on it, but it's really helpful. But like, I don't think social media is not a strategy. It's not something that you should rely on heavily. And the other thing that I didn't mention that is super important is getting in front of other people's audiences, because you want to grow your audience. So you want to get on other people's podcasts. You want to participate in some of the bundle giveaways that are out there. Be on summits, things like that. Get your face and your voice in front of other people as part of that marketing strategy. But like I said, just to go back to my original soapbox, social media is not the end all, and you don't have to be everywhere. Figure out where your audience is and show up there. If if social media is where you want to be, figure out where your audience is first, and then be there. So
okay,
I'll
perfect. Okay, no, it's good because I have all the questions and I ran out of space on the page, so now it's probably good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So my first question is, how exactly would you define pillar content? So what is something, that we can, and then how much is a good amount of that pillar content?
Yeah. I'll start with your second question first. So I think the amount that you create is truly dependent on what you can do as a business owner. Like, what can you commit to?
Yeah.
I used to say you need to have a week, whatever you do, it needs to be weekly. I used to say that. But the reality is that that's not like,
it can be a lot.
Yeah, that's a
Weekly.
lot for some people. You can hire somebody to help. That's something that I do is I help support clients and things like that in creating weekly content. However, not everybody can do that. Not everybody wants to do that, because even if you have a podcast, like, you still have to record. Nobody's going to do that for you.
Right.
So it can become a lot, and it can become expensive. So figure out, like, what can you commit to first. And now I forgot your first question.
Just kind of like what would you consider the definition of pillar content?
Yeah. Pillar content is, well, like I said, it's the content that you own. So it's you own the content that you put on your blog. So because you're writing that, you own the content that you are publishing on your podcast. Even though there's a third party that's actually releasing the podcast to all the podcast apps, it's still your content. And then the YouTube channel, you own the video that you're uploading there. And YouTube is a search engine, so I still consider that content that you own. On the other hand, if you're thinking of pillar content in terms of, like, the topics that you're...
Yeah, that's kind of where what I was thinking. I was like, do you mean certain topics or... that's where I was going.
So in WordPress, and I don't know if it's still called this on WordPress, but it's like cornerstone content, like your big ideas. So so I call these zones of genius. What are the big, like, 4 or 5 areas that you talk about all of the time on your podcast, your blog, your YouTube channel? What are the big ideas that your audience needs to know? Like, what are the big things that you believe in that you want to share? I would pick 4 or 5 and then brainstorm into, like, smaller topics below that. So, like, for you, it could be maybe one of them's marketing your digital product. Maybe one of them's, like, tools for your digital product. And of course,
one of them is smaller. Is smaller products. Like, your first product should be a smaller product. Like, it's not like you're making this too big, you're making it too hard, it's taking too long. So yeah, that's definitely one of my personal kind of mantras.
Yeah.
So
yes, perfect. So so that would be, like, let's say that's your 3. Maybe you have one more. And you figure out what are all of the things that people need to know about smaller products? What are all the things that people need to know about marketing their digital products? What are all the things that people need to know about the different tools that are out there for their digital products? And then you could have a heyday just brainstorming all of the ideas around that. I also recommend, too, to help find topics and help determine what your audience really needs to know, is to go ask them, survey them, to try to get more information. You can use the words that they share in your marketing. It could kind of inform some of the products that you create down the road too. So there's a lot you can do with just like a quick survey of your audience.
Yeah. And so you have to have an audience to be able to survey them. So that kind of leads into some of the other questions here. So you mentioned, having that free lead magnet and then doing, welcome sequence or nurture sequence. Were you thinking that at the end or near the end of the welcome sequence, there would be a sell for the product? And or would the product exist maybe somewhere else on your website if people already knew you, they were already interested, they could just get it there? Like, do you have any
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. You could have like I would make it a low priced
Mhm,
offer at the end of that welcome sequence, but that also means that everything else that you include in that sequence should lead up to that sale. So if you're
mhm,
selling like a toolkit of some sort, the emails in that welcome sequence should offer value around that toolkit before you actually go to sell because you want to prove to your audience that you can get a win for them, that what
right.
you have
Mhm,
is of value. So you wanna share that leading up to that. You could also direct them to other content that you have, other
mhm,
podcast episodes or YouTube videos or blogs that mention the toolkit or that talk about it in a way and have, like, a sales link there too. You could do
mhm,
both. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I absolutely don't recommend putting any kind of sales link in the first couple of emails
mhm.
because nobody wants to be sold to right
It's
away. They wanna
fast.
get to know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. You want
Yeah,
to warm them up a little bit. So, how many emails
absolutely.
then do you think, like even just a regular welcome sequence, it doesn't
Mhm.
sell something at the end? How many emails? Because I just kind of redid my welcome sequence and I'm like, I wonder how many emails I'm supposed to have. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
It depends. It depends on what you're selling. I have a client that we're kind of in the process of putting together like a year-long sequence where we're
Oh.
trying to turn some of the content more evergreen. And
Hmm.
so we're just putting together this longer sequence so that the creation of the emails is not as time sensitive. It's just
Hmm.
kind of, we just kind of repeat the emails for new people. But it could be like 4 or 5, that's usually right around 4 or 5, sometimes up to 7. Again, it depends on I have a client who has a 7 video series
Ooh.
that we've created, and so every email in that welcome sequence it actually ends up being 8 email because
Hmm.
there's an extra one at the end, but so every email has a video that goes out with, like,
Hmm.
the next step of the thing that we're leading them to.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like that. And do you have any thoughts on days apart? That's another thing that kind of comes up sometimes is like, do I email them every day for 7 days?
No.
Do I, well, yeah. But
No,
some people are
don't.
like, you should be emailing
No.
every day. And I'm like, no, I'm not in that camp.
Mm.
So yeah, any thoughts about like, should the first couple be closer together and then a little bit further out? Like,
Yeah, you can't. It depends on how long the sequence
mhm,
is, and it also depends on because so you have 2 choices. Do you want them to go through the whole email sequence, the whole welcome sequence before they start to get your regular nurture emails,
mhm,
or do you want them to get the nurture emails at the same time as they're going through the welcome sequence? And so you have to make a decision on that and then make sure that the sequence doesn't land on the days that you are sending your regular nurture email and then make sure that
okay.
you've spread it out a little bit. So I like 2 to 3 days at the beginning and then for a longer sequence 4 to 5 days towards the end of the sequence. Again, it kind of depends what the
Mhm,
content is and how much other content you're putting out there too. So
right.
there's a lot of it depends.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah,
So,
that's perfectly
yeah.
fine. Okay, so you're using nurture in maybe a different way than I have heard it before.
Mm,
So I think maybe you're saying nurture in just like emails that you send weekly or every 2 weeks or so.
yeah.
When I think when I think of nurture, I think of a sequence that is meant to do a thing, that is meant
Mm.
to book a call, that is meant to sell a product. So am I correct in that?
Yes, yeah, I
Okay.
consider nurture is you're staying in front of your audience,
Okay.
you're nurturing them with new information, you're teaching them something new, and then the other sequence that you were talking about, I just kinda call that a sequence. It could
Okay.
be a sales sequence, it could be a
Okay.
launch sequence, something like that, but yeah, I look at those as 2 different things. If there's like a sales action at the end, then I would definitely call it more of a sales sequence or
Okay.
an opt-in sequence or something like that, where you want them to
Okay.
opt into a workshop or something
Mhm.
like that.
Okay. So I was thinking of just I have other questions in the list, but just kind of like a
Mhm.
sidebar here. So if you launch a product and then you have that launch sequence, like that seems to be very intuitive, right? Like I'm launching on Thursday. the emails have been going out and then they'll
Mhm.
continue to go out, whatever it is, like around that time.
Yeah.
Is that the only way to tell people about your product? Like, what happens then next month and the month after that and a year from now? Like, do people do a relaunch series? Like, if it's an evergreen product, like, what are some ways that, or some things that you can do, I guess, instead of just like, or beyond just that first, like, launch? It's launched. Like, then what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so depending on how many products you have, you could include, like, add it to your email footer, both in
Mm-hmm.
your email system that you use, like whether it's Active Campaign or ConvertKit or whatever, and then also in your like your regular email footer. Like have a link there to your products. I have a client who she has a free, like she has a client resource directory, and we've included the product hasn't launched yet, but we've included a wait list at the bottom of that so people can opt in for free, and it's at the bottom. So every new person who joins her list will see that and have that, and it'll be included in some of the regular nurture emails that we send out also. Mention it in your other content, like continue to talk about it. And then again, like just like, your minimum viable content marketing, show up on other people's podcasts, like make sure you're continually working to grow your list, because every time a new person joins your list, that's a new potential customer, a new potential person to buy that product.
Right.
So, and again, like you mentioned, relaunches. So if your product is, it doesn't necessarily have to be seasonal, but if it's more popular during a different, like a certain season of the year,
Mm-hmm.
use that as an opportunity to relaunch or refresh
Ooh, good
your
idea. Mm-hmm.
email sequences and things like that. So I think there's always opportunity. Like, you hear about business owners who write books. In fact, I just saw a social media post about this today. Somebody I'm Facebook friends with who is in this online business world wrote a book a couple years ago, and she posted, I forgot I even wrote a book. Like, you have to keep marketing
Yes.
the book. You have to
Yes.
keep putting it out there because
Right.
otherwise people won't know about it. So, yeah.
Exactly. And new people join, like you mentioned, new people
Yes.
join your list. It's like there
Hmm.
was a comic somewhere that I saw. It's like the 10,000, like um somebody is hearing about something. 10,000 people are hearing about something for the first time every day. So if
Yes.
you say something on Tuesday, there is somebody who just come into your orbit on Wednesday who didn't hear you on Tuesday.
Yep.
So they don't know about your thing. So I think
Yeah.
that's another thing that might be one of my pillar contents, because now that's in the back of my mind too, is like, this isn't passive income. Like,
Mm-mm.
yes, it
No.
can be more passive than one-to-one work. Obviously,
Right.
one-to-one work is different, but you still have to set up the email sequences. You still have to be a guest on the podcast. You still have to post the social media posts and continue to mention these things. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see what else I want to ask. You mentioned bundles, participating in bundles, and I was just
Mhm.
talking about this with someone recently. So, what else can you tell us about bundles? Are there some that you like or recommend? Are there certain products that go well with bundles? And any thoughts that you want to share about bundles?
I think that the people who host the bundles usually have, like, they have their vision and of what they want to, the types of products they want to share. So I think it's really important to make sure. I mean, it doesn't take very much to participate in a bundle. You fill out the form, you create the graphic, you already have the product,
You
the
have the
digital
product, right?
product.
Mhm.
So it doesn't take very much, but where I have seen the most success is where the theme of the bundle, the product bundle, is really aligned with the product itself. So I had a client who recently participated in a bundle, and she saw an over 10% growth in
Mm.
her already decent sized email list. Like the email list was already a good size, and she saw 10% growth on that. And it's because the person who hosted the bundle was so organized and I was really impressed because I was on the actual marketing side of helping, prepare everything and get everything loaded. And I was just really impressed with the organization. And so we're able to take those new people who we tracked. So we know exactly who those people are, and we're able to turn around and we're actually going to market something separate directly to
Mhm.
that group of people that really aligns with the product that we offered. And I'm really excited about it. And so it's about
Yeah.
like making sure, we've seen the bundles in Facebook groups. We've all probably gotten emails about them and been contacted about them. And it's just about finding what really resonates with you. And I would make sure, if you haven't participated in a bundle before, to find somebody who you've seen them around a bit, because then they can kind of help you walk you through what that looks like, and you'll have a lot more success. But definitely track the email addresses that you're getting through the bundles. So I think you asked how it works, but basically you contribute something for free, and people opt into your list in order to get that free thing. So it's usually like a product that's under $50 or under $100, and you get the email list of all the people who sign up for your specific product. Super easy to do with all the back-end systems that product sellers already have. So, yeah.
In your experience, has it been a product? You mentioned it's a product you already have created. Is it one that you're selling and actively marketing, or is it a product that's specifically for participating in bundles?
It depends. For this particular client that I helped with this, it was a product that we were already marketing and selling, and we were able to, so then we offer it for free inside this bundle. Usually that's one of the requirements, that it has to be something that you are selling or have sold in the past. Like it can't be a free opt-in that you already offer for free, because then there's no point in opting in. So yeah.
Okay. Interesting. You mentioned needing to have more conversations with people, maybe on social media, to be able to sell a product versus selling a service. And that would probably go into like conversion rates, right? So you need, 200 visitors to your web page to get 4 sales or whatever that is. So do you want to do you have any thoughts on that, about maybe tracking conversion rates, or just that you also see that it takes a lot more views to a page to make a digital product sale than it does in a service business?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely takes more. You need to have a bigger audience if you're going to sell a product, particularly the lower the price of the product, the more sales that you need to make, right? Because if you have a I'm terrible at math, but if you have a $10 product and you sell 10 of them, that's $100. Meanwhile, maybe you have a service that's $100. If you sell 10 of those, that's $1,000. So you need to have, in order to make $1,000, you have to sell 100 of those $10 products. So yeah, you definitely need a wider net in order to make the sales that you probably want to make. And, this isn't a product that I've sold, but when I think back to, I don't know, like 8 or so years ago in business, or maybe 7, I wanted to be Amy Porterfield. I was listening to her podcast. I was writing a lot of blogs. This is before I started my podcast. And she has a freebie, or at least she used to have a freebie for almost every single episode. So I was like trying to
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, no. I was trying to create these things, and at the time it was only me and my business, and I'm trying to create all of these digital downloads and things like that, and it was chaos. It was chaos in my brain. It was chaos on my website, in my, in my email provider. It was total chaos. And when you think about like selling really low priced digital products and trying to like create a whole bunch of them, I wouldn't be able to keep track of them. Like that would be a lot for me. I know that a lot of people are really successful in doing that. I will never be that person.
It's hard.
And kudos to the people who are. But yeah, like think about the price of what you're offering and how many people you need to attract in order to sell that, in order to make a profit, and to not be sitting at your desk working. And if you have a team who's helping, awesome. That's fantastic. Like that's where the gold is. But I personally, I think it's really difficult. It would be really difficult for me to get to that point. So.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you don't have, Amy Porterfield's team. I mean, like, it's just a different.
I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking, she's doing all of this. I can do it too. No, I can't.
Yeah. Even having, like, as soon as you add more than one opt-in, sometimes things go hairy. Like, I think maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like having kids, like when you have 2 and then you have 3. I'm not sure. I only have one.
I only have one. I only have one
Yeah.
also.
Okay,
I
so
don't
we
know.
don't know. Don't ask us. But yes, I think, you have one and it's the way it is. And then you add two
Mm,
and you're like, okay, wait. Like I helped a client recently. She wanted to add an additional freebie. She wants to test them out seasonally. So we
mm,
had to pull they delivered the email, the freebie, and then the welcome sequence was just attached to it. But I didn't want to replicate the welcome sequence for a different freebie where she had to manage, two sets.
yeah.
So then we created this sort of Y situation where like you get each freebie and then you're funneled into a welcome sequence. So,
Yes.
it gets a little bit, there's some planning involved and some
Yes.
structural things because you want to make it easy for yourself later to go into your platform and say, okay, this is the next thing I want to do. Instead of like, wait, what's happening here? Like, I don't know what
Mhm.
emails are being sent and I'm not sure what's being said. Yeah, it takes some organization, I think, for all of
Absolutely.
this. For all
Yes.
of
For all
this.
of it,
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. Okay, so let's see. How do you know if the marketing is working? I mean, yes,
Mhm.
sales,
Mhm.
but are there other things? And how do you know if it's enough sales, I suppose? Or the customer life cycle
Mhm.
where, we want somebody to meet us and then buy our product immediately. And that's not really how it works.
Right.
So do you have
Right.
any thoughts on any of those things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to figure out how many is it enough sales? Well, I think that's looking at your numbers and figuring out, and I am not the person to ask about this, but figuring out like, what do you need to bring home? I'm a big proponent of you pay yourself a living wage and,
Yeah.
make sure that you're paying yourself and that your finances are totally separate, personal and business.
Yes.
But that's a whole
Yes.
nother podcast episode. So, but knowing how much you need to bring in is super important. But as far as tracking, there are a lot of different ways to track, and you need to determine what's the most important. I think that probably one of the more important things to track is your email list and making sure that you're continuing to grow the email list, because the email list will eventually lead to sales. Size is important, yes, but engagement is more important. So what do your open rates look like? Are people clicking on things when they open your emails? That's super important. So looking at that on a regular basis, have some sort of like dashboard. We use like an Excel spreadsheet,
Mm,
have a dashboard set up where you're tracking, going in and looking at that once a week. My assistant and I have a Wednesday date, work with me Wednesday date, where we sit and we do that together so
nice.
that we can take a look at what's working and what's not. And if you're not seeing the open rates that you want to see, then I would say look at your subject lines. Are they engaging? Do people want to open them? How often are you emailing? Are you emailing every day? Stop.
Yes. People really want you to email every day. I
Yes.
swear. Like I see all of
No.
this. They're like,
It's
email
so
daily, email
annoying.
daily. I'm like, oh my God, I will
No.
unsubscribe. If you email me
Yes.
daily, I will unsubscribe.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. So yeah, don't email daily. Like switch to if you feel like you really want to email daily, switch to twice a week and try that for a little while. Try that
Mhm.
for 3 months and see how it works. But because people don't have time, if you're emailing every day
No.
and I'm emailing every day and three other people are, and the
Yeah.
same person's getting all those emails, it's too much.
Mhm.
So yeah, so look at your open rates, look at the click-through rates. If your click-through rates, and that's where people are clicking on the link to buy or clicking on the link to go to a piece of content, if those are low inside your emails, then I would look at how many links do I have in the email? Is there too
Okay.
many?
Okay.
So you don't want a whole bunch of links because people have decision fatigue. It's like looking in your closet. Well, which t-shirt am I going to wear today? I have
Mhm.
18 of them. So it's
Okay.
just,
Yeah.
it's decision fatigue. I can only wear one shirt at a time. So the other 17 are just going to sit there. I'm only going to click on one thing at a time. The other links are
Mhm.
just going to sit there and I'm going to forget about it because I have too many other things going on my computer screen. Look at where is the link that you want them to click? Where is it placed in the email? Maybe you need to move it up and have a
Mhm.
button, whatever. So those are really important things to track. And then the other thing that I think is really important to track, because obviously being on somebody's podcast takes time. If you're pitching to be on podcasts, that takes time too. So, what is the value of the podcasts that you're on? Are you choosing to be on the right types of podcasts? And so, the way I track that is, and it's different for different systems, but I use Pretty Links inside my,
Mhm.
like, it's a plugin for your website. It's free. I use the free version.
Yeah.
And so when I mention a link on a podcast, I will use a Pretty Link so I know which podcast episodes went to like grow my list the most.
Mhm.
So that's really helpful to do. You can also do that with bundles, and you can do that. And that doesn't mess up, like, you don't have to add you don't necessarily have to add an extra tag in your email system. You can, but you don't necessarily have to. You just can see how many people have clicked on the link or typed the link into their browser or something. So that's
Nice.
super
Nice.
helpful. That
Mhm.
way, like the
Mhm.
time that you spent researching podcasts or pitching a podcast or
Mhm.
like actually being on a podcast was really like this particular type of podcast was really valuable. So
Okay.
then you can go find more that are
Of
like
those.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was my question because you've already been on the
Right.
podcast. If it didn't do well for you, then yeah, what is your action step?
Yeah.
Though. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. Do you have more to say about podcasts? Like I know podcast guesting is great. And like how any thoughts about that you want to share about, as far as getting in front of other audiences and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a podcast, one of the best things you can do for your own podcast is to be on other people's podcasts
Mhm.
because it's such a natural transition. Listeners are already listening. And so if I mention my podcast, The Content Experiment,
Yes.
it's really easy because you're already there. You're already
Mhm.
on the app on
There's
your phone, or you just go over and subscribe and you'll get notified or it'll pop up on your feed the next time
Mhm.
I release an episode. So yeah, it's really easy. And if somebody is listening to a podcast, oftentimes that's their preferred way to
Mhm.
receive content or consume content. And so, they're a podcast listener, come listen to my podcast too.
Mhm.
It just is a natural transition, and it's easy. It's fun. I think it's fun to
Mhm.
do. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I know I don't do enough of it. So,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find, I think, the ones, and it's
mhm,
hard to, there's a lot of scheduling involved. Obviously there's time. There's time
yeah,
involved, but yeah, I
yeah,
think it's fun.
yeah. Well, and
Cool.
also too, like, not to pat myself on the back, but but I'm
No.
going to for a minute. No, I think it's just really easy to talk about your products. Throughout this episode, I've talked a
Mhm.
little bit about my services and some of the
Mhm.
things that I've done with clients. And hopefully it hasn't sounded salesy because I
No. Mm-mm.
truly want to like give examples, but those
Yeah.
examples might resonate with someone. So if you are a guest, even if you don't have a podcast, if you're a guest on
Mhm.
somebody's podcast, share some of the
Mhm.
successes that you've seen. Share some of those things because that's what people want to hear. And that's
Mhm.
what will drive them hopefully to your website or to your products to buy them or to get on your email list. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and that's kind of like maybe your pillar content, like the things
mhm,
that you always want to talk about, that message that you want to share specifically about your area of expertise. Like,
yes.
you're into content, but there's specific ways that you recommend that people create content or specific types of content. Like you have a framework kind of around it, and I have
Absolutely.
thoughts, yeah, about digital products. Like, don't start with a course. You've never done this before. Why would you start with a course? Like, I swear
Yes.
every episode we're talking about this. So I just think that people have thoughts about, like, when you think digital product, you think course,
Mhm.
and that's just one thing. And while courses can be really successful, they can be harder to market. Like, you just don't know the technology, you don't know your audience quite in that way. Like, especially as a service provider, you've
Yeah.
been providing a service for a long time and you're established at it and you know what you're doing, but products are different. Like, it's
Yeah.
just a different kind of ballgame. So
Yeah.
that's why my start small sort of soapbox there.
Yes. I love it. I totally agree.
Yay. Okay, cool. Okay, so any last things, I guess, do you want to say before I ask you for your advice? What 2 to 3 things you recommend for someone who is marketing their first product?
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
we've covered
Yep. Yeah.
a huge amount of information. I don't want to totally overwhelm anybody.
Yeah. No, so I know. Yes, it's hard because you're like, oh, but here's everything I know.
Yeah.
You want to share it. So yeah, I totally get
Yes.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's picture this person out there who has
Mhm.
not created anything yet. They just created their product. They are they're thinking about marketing, right? So maybe they're creating their product and hopefully they're thinking about marketing before they launch it.
Mhm.
So what kind of things can they do maybe during the creation process that would support marketing at launch time and then ongoing later?
Yes. Well, so I think that the very first thing to do, if you haven't done it yet, is to talk to your audience, survey them to figure out where are they hanging out, what type of content do they want to receive, what are their challenges around whatever you're offering, whatever, type of win you're helping them with in the whole process. And I actually have a tool for that people can download for free. So here I am putting my thing out there with my pretty link, the contentexperiment.com/Renee, and that's RENE,
Awesome.
right?
Yep, RENE.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, they can get, I call them Ask Your Audience. So you can download that. It actually goes against what I was saying about sending an email every day. So it's 5 days in a row that you get an
5
email
days.
with the next step
That's okay.
of how to survey your audience. So it's got
Okay.
homework in between, but it's totally free. And so talk to your audience, make sure you know where they're hanging out well before you are ready to launch. Start sharing information around whatever you're offering. So I recommend planning your content like 90 days in advance. So 90 days from today, you're going to sell this thing. So what are the things that your audience needs to know or be able to do in order to make a decision to buy that product? So start talking about it, start sharing about it. Don't pitch anything. Don't, at this point early on, it's not coming soon. It's nothing like that. You're just sharing, nurturing, growing your email list. Hopefully you have podcasts or things and you have a list that you're continually growing. And then a couple weeks ahead of time, then that's when just really start talking about the product itself and what wins people can get from it. And that's all prior to the actual launch itself. But when you have a product, especially if it's evergreen, it's something, it's constant list building, constant, engagement, constant nurturing of your audience.
Yeah, don't forget you have the product.
Yes.
Because if you forget, other people will forget too, or maybe just never know to begin with. So
yes.
Awesome. Yay. Okay, great. So do you have any other links, or do you want to say that link again? Tell us where we can find you online, connect with you, what platforms, and so on.
Yeah, it's thecontentexperiment.com/Renee, RENE, and you can get I call it the Ask Your Audience Challenge. So you'll get a series of emails that teaches you. And then I actually have templates that you can use for Airtable and Google Forms to kind of build your own survey using the information that's already provided. So yeah, it's super easy. And yeah, you can find me at The Content Experiment. I'm on Instagram at The Content Experiment, and I'm on LinkedIn at Abby M. Herman. I don't use a business page on LinkedIn because it's more, I want to be more personal. So
yeah, I never know about the business page, the personal page. It's definitely a thing. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been so valuable. I've taken a ton of notes, and I love to go back through the episode too and kind of and I'll comb out anything and kind of summarize. So that's awesome. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'd love to continue the conversation in your inbox. Email subscribe to hey@yfdp.show or sign up in the show notes to get bi-monthly emails about how you can create, launch, and market your first digital product. Can't wait to see you there.